Hey, what's up? John Sonmez from simpleprogrammer.com. So I'm doing another book review here. This is the second book review, I believe, that I'm doing. I did a book review on Eckhart Tolle's the New Earth, I think, and that was the first one. And of course, there'll be a playlist here of all the book reviews. As I do more book reviews, I'll post more here. But if you like these reviews, let me know. If you don't, then, well, maybe you should find another channel. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, if you don't, just let me know. Maybe I'll stop doing them. But I think, if there's enough interest, then I'll keep doing these because I'm always reading, right? So anyway, so this book, I actually was like, I don't know if I want to do a review on this book, but I'm just going to make this kind of light because I don't want to get into the depth of this right now, this topic, because this is sort of the second book in a series. And I feel like there's so much, if you want a precursor to this book, then obviously watch my series on becoming more of a man and attracting women, because that's essentially the topic of this book, right? It's funny because I think one of the commenters, I can't remember his name, had recommended this book to me called The Rational Male, and I had not heard of this. And when I read this, I was like, wow, this is interesting, because this guy sort of discovered all these things that it took me a long time to figure out on my own, and I didn't know that this was already out there. It would have saved me a lot of trouble, right? This is technically, and so the book that I'm talking about now, if you haven't guessed already, if you're familiar with, Rollo Tomasi, I think that's his name. Anyway, it's a pseudonym anyway. But is called Rational Male Preventive Medicine, and so this is the second in his series of books. I personally think the first one is better. A lot of people say that Preventive Medicine is the best book ever, is better, and I can see why. So this book really is focused on sort of different ages of how women sort of act based on this concept of hypergamy, of basically how would they act at different age levels to optimize the mate selection, right? Or short-term mating strategies versus long-term mating strategies. Pretty interesting, pretty biologically sound. Makes sense. A lot of people aren't going to like this, by the way, right? This is not a popular topic to talk about. Obviously, I get a lot of hate from when I talk about these topics, but hey, this is a book. I'm giving you the review on the book. I read the book. I feel like he's pretty dang accurate. I do feel like I don't agree with 100% of what he says. I think his outlook is a little bit slightly jaded, but I think that too many guys are too dang soft. So I'd rather you take his outlook and just trust what he's saying 100%, because that's a better outlook than most of the outlooks that I see. So I think it's a really valuable book. I think it's a really good book. You should read this book if you're a guy, especially. And I still think the first book is better. I'm pretty set on that, because I think in this book, I think what his goal of the book was to cover the different ages from 18 to 50 or whatever, and show how the switches from kind of this short-term mating selection, sort of what you'd call the alpha type of guy selection, versus the long-term, and this is all based on this whole idea of sexual marketplace value, of essentially that women sort of peak at 23 and guys sort of hit their peak around 35, 36. And so, optimizing that is, if you think about it, he talks about how in the short term, when you're at your peak and you're a woman, you're like, well, okay, I can just do whatever. And you're going after kind of these, would you maybe say the bad guys or the bad boys, the more alpha guys, because they're not as good of caretakers, so it doesn't matter, but they're more fun, right? So, and then later on in the 30s, when that starts to decline, right, the value, their value starts to decline, and they're not able to pull as many guys, then they're looking for the long-term, committed sort of guy that's going to be more nurturing and more of a bit of a father and things like that. So. And then later on, that sort of switches again which was kind of interesting. But anyway, that's kind of, I think, what Rollo Tomassi was trying to do with the book was to show that, to kind of chart that out, to kind of give a roadmap. And I think that's extremely valuable. But I think then it's like, well, what am I going to do with the rest of the pages of the book? So he took a lot of other blog posts and I think he put them in there. And there's this whole issue. I mean, writing a book like this, I can imagine, like, you got to give people context and background. And there's like this whole sort of, because he operates sort of in the blogging manosphere, blogs, and there's a lot of terminology and stuff to know. So I think it's a challenge. I think he did a great job. But I do feel like the rest of the content in the book is not quite as valuable if you're already kind of familiar with those topics, or you read his first book, or you read his blog. But the meat of it, I think, does have value. I do have one gripe with the meat of it, which is that he doesn't give solutions for dealing with these issues. Not really. Like, so, I would like to see someone write a book that said, okay, here's how you could optimize for this particular situation so that you're not being, because you don't want to be, group A or group B, right? You sort of want to be the hybrid of group A and B and be able to, capitalize on your greatest strengths and assets. Again, this is sort of talking at a very, abstract level, because again, the challenge of talking about even a book like this is how much you already know. If you don't already know sort of the background, then what I'm saying just seems like pure lunacy, pure sexist lunacy, actually. So I would recommend that you read the book for yourself. Start with his first book, The Rational Male, then read The Rational Male Preventative Medicine. You can get The Rational Male here, and he's got an audio version of it. That's what I listen to, the audio version. And then Rational Male Preventive Medicine here. And I think it's worth a read. I think these books, especially if you're a guy and you've never read The Rational Male, absolutely, I'd put that 100% on your reading list. You got to read this book. And then this follow-up one, I would put that pretty high priority as well. Again, I don't think it's as good as the first one or as critical, but I still think it was a really good book. And yeah, that's it. I think, I don't want to, this is a hard one. I kind of delayed the first video that I made on this book review because I was like, well, how far do I go into this topic? Again, if you're interested in this topic in general, go to my playlist on becoming a better man and attracting women, because that is going to talk about those things, and I'll be adding more to that. But I can't get into the entire scope of this, the depth of the background that I would need to give you in order to do like a really good in-depth review of this book. So hopefully I've given you enough information to make you curious that you'll want to read these two books on your own, and then you can make a judgment for yourself. But I think that this is something that is critical, that guys should be reading, and it's something that I highly recommend. So anyway, that's it. Hopefully on my next book I'll be able to give you a little bit more insight, because I won't have to kind of speak at these higher abstract levels. But anyway, if you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and I will talk to you next time. Take care.